Welcome back to Teach English Now. In this video, we are going to take a closer look at what we have learned from the communicative approach and give you some ideas of how you can apply the principles of this approach in your classroom. In truth, we are still learning from the communicative approach. Some people might say that we have moved on to a different approach that is similar to the communicative approach in some way and pulls from the other approaches we have discussed as needed to fit the purpose, content, and technique of each of the specific teaching contexts. We have, in a way, swung the pendulum more toward the middle of all of the approaches, taking from each as we need to. That being said, however, most teachers today still align themselves with the communicative approach, and it forms the basis of many teachers' philosophy of language teaching. As you saw in video 4, the purpose of the communicative approach is to connect people together through language, and many teachers would say that this is their main purpose for teaching language. The content for this approach, then, is anything that will help people connect through language. Books, magazines, movies, newspapers, advertisements, even restaurant menus. And the techniques used are just as broad. Like the devil mentioned in our last video, the communicative approach is so broad that perhaps one of its biggest problems is that no one can definitively say what its techniques and practices are. Furthermore, there is so much information today that it is hard to know where to look. And yet one more difficulty is that teachers are given not only many different strategies, but many different groups with different purposes, different learning styles, and teachers are expected to be experts of all of these different contexts. So some people feel the communicative approach really doesn't have clear boundaries, and those within it don't have a clear concept of what to do within their classrooms. Still, teachers today are obviously doing something in their classrooms, or this approach wouldn't exist today. So let's take a look at some of the common techniques that fall under the communicative approach, keeping in mind that there may be many others we don't mention, and that any activity or exercise that gets your students communicating in the target language may be considered part of this broad understanding of the communicative approach. Authentic materials. One of the biggest problems in any educational setting is getting students to take what they've learned in the classroom and apply it in the real world. And the same holds true for language teaching. How many students actually transfer the knowledge they've gained during classroom practice and activities to language situations they face outside the classroom? In order to aid in this transfer of language skills, teachers in the communicative approach try to make the language practice in the classroom as close to the real world as possible. Sure, you can write a reading passage for your students that includes all of the vocabulary words they've been studying, but how natural will the language be? Thus, teachers try to find authentic materials that incorporate the vocabulary and grammar they are teaching, or base their vocabulary and grammar instruction on the authentic materials they have available to them. As the angel mentioned in our last video, however, sometimes teachers may have to adapt authentic materials to fit the level of their students, or find authentic materials that don't have a lot of language in them, but that can be used for communicative activities, like restaurant menus or newspaper weather reports. Sequencing activities. An integral part of communication is understanding cues in the language. How do you know when it is okay to respond to someone, or when someone is finished with their idea? To help learners understand and use these types of communication cues, teachers give students dialogues or paragraphs with the sentences mixed up and have them put the sentences or utterances back in the correct order. For grammar instruction, you may do this with single sentences, having the students put the words back in order to understand how the sentence is arranged according to a particular grammatical principle. These types of activities help students understand that language is not a bunch of words and sentences just thrown together, but a group of ideas connected for purpose, and how those ideas flow together. Language games. Let's face it, learners are more engaged when they are having fun. But we don't want teachers to play games just because they are having fun. I'm sure basketball is a fun game, but how does it help someone learn language? When you play games in your classroom, Make sure they are for the purpose of teaching language, as well as having fun. For example, structure the game so that students have to work in teams and communicate with each other in the target language. This helps students increase their engagement and give them opportunities to practice the language as well. In some games, the focus of the game may be the language itself. For example, you may give students a set of cards with words on them, and they have to put the words together to form a variety of sentences. Or cards with pictures, and the students have to use the pictures to tell a story. In other games, you may just be reviewing principles already covered in class, but the structure of the game provides communicative opportunities for the students. Information gap. One of the important tenets of the communicative approach is that the communication must be for a specific purpose. If there is no reason for the communication, then it isn't real communication. Many times people communicate to get information from another person using information gap. This is an activity that we've already introduced to you, but is certainly something that communicative teachers use today. Role plays. Another important communicative activity is the role play. Students are given a specific communicative context, such as ordering in a restaurant, and are each given specific roles, such as waiter, customer, manager, or chef. The students must communicate with each other in the given context, acting out the role they've been given. For lower level students, the teacher may give them specific language to use, like a written dialogue, whereas more advanced students may be asked to create the language themselves on the spot. As with information gaps, the focus is more on the communication and being understood by their fellow students than on the language itself and any errors they might make. Thanks for watching Teach English Now. In our next video, we'll summarize the main points from both the comprehension approach and the communicative approach, and then compare them to help you finish filling out the diagram. We'll see you then.